Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the Cyber Gizmo, I'm going to go back and fill in the gap that I left with Alpine, not with the scripts. I'm still working on those, so give me a week or so, and I'll try to get those up at the end of next week, end of this week, actually. So the thing I wanted to talk about is the benchmarks themselves. So the way let's talk about the methodology first. I use Harmonix test suite. I use pretty much the same set of tests between each run. On Alpine, some special problems exist with trying to get Harmonix to run, but I managed to work through those for the most part. Had a couple of exceptions. Ware, for example, that is not a application that's installable. I didn't go out and download it from source and then compile it. So there's no data for that. The other one is the memory, where we look at things like triad and then look at integer and floating point to see how well those perform. Unfortunately, it compiled just fine, but then when I went to run it, it didn't produce any results. That usually indicates that it's either missing a library or it has a library, which I suspect probably is Musl, because a lot of those things are going to be using glibc. So I haven't investigated that, but I will. One other thing is that whenever I'm doing these tests, I do test on a virtual machine, mainly because that's just the first place I bring up a new distribution to look at. And so I try to keep everything the same. Not all my hardware is, I shuffle things around, so doing them on hardware would be difficult over time because, I would have to come up with some automation that sticks to the same machine. And so that makes it difficult. Whereas being on a virtual machine, that doesn't have such a big problem. The other issue that I ran into with the virtual machine is the latest versions of Proxmox have changed some of the CPU variables. I was actually able to slow Alpine down, which, I don't think I want to do that. We don't want to see, we don't want to deliberately throw a wrench into it. So if you set the typical settings that you normally would for like an x86, don't do that. You're better off with the default. I would recommend either using the AES build, and that seems to be probably the sweet spot, and leave the rest of them alone. Don't manually set them. You'll only make things worse for your performance. So, okay, let's take a look at the benchmark, and you'll notice that the first one it comes up with is that triad ramp speed test. And you'll notice Alpine's missing. If it was there, it should have a different color, a darker blue, but it's not. So I'm just going to skip over those. You've seen those before when I did the MX25 benchmark. They haven't changed. Floating point, no difference here. Still nothing. We finally get some Alpine. So in this particular test, this is also a triad test. So this might help us at least see kind of how memory is performing with it. So it doesn't do terrible. It's faster than MX. It's faster than Fedora. It's faster than Linux Mint, faster than Rocky. A little slower than Debian 13, and a little bit faster than Deviuan. That's probably in the noise, though. So pretty close overall. None of those, except for Linux Mint, are really running behind. And the tiny benchmark, this is a mem copy. It's only 128 megabyte, I think. So it should tell you somewhere on the test. But okay, so it does not slam stuff real quick. You'll see the front runner down here is Debbian, which is at 18,589.2, clearly slower at 12,117.4. So this could very well be Musl. Very possible. Tiny Bench. This is just another memset. So it's way off from the leaders. But there were others that didn't do this test very well either, and that's Linux Mint and Rocky. MBW, memory copy array size 128 MB. And yeah, again, we're seeing the same kinds of things here. Rocky is the last place, but everybody else finished ahead of Alpine. Speed test, Alpine, I don't know, something bad is happening here with the internet download speeds. Yeah, that's clearly 100 megabit per second. So for some reason, it decided to change the device. Everything else seems to be running at full speed, but not this test. So it tricked it into, slowing down. Latency, of course, is going to be higher because the speed is lower. So, yeah. Crypto, this one, by the way, it reverses. You want lower. So Rocky did well here. Crypto is unkeyed algorithms. This is what I'm testing here. It's close to Linux Mint, but behind everybody else. HPL LinPack, I'm surprised it even scored. This is this is when you start getting into dependencies on libraries. GCC and the glib libraries are just crazy optimized to run LinPack, as you might guess, because that's the primary way it gets run. So, and this is a C++ benchmark. So, the time Linux kernel, it failed to do that test. Probably because it couldn't find that version of the operating system. That'd be my guess. C-Ray, I had to install this one as a package, and it did run. Lower is better here. So Fedora was first. Let's reverse that. Debian 134, Devuan 138. Then we have MX. Then finally Alpine, and then then Rocky, and then Linux Mint in last place. Almost exactly what's going on with memory. So this is, it's probably obviously using memory for the ray trace. OpenSSL, higher numbers here are better. Rocky was in last place, and then second to the last was Alpine. But it's not off the mark too bad. I seriously doubt you would notice this in a normal workflow. I doubt it. In this case, the OpenSSL RSA 4096 is running about the same, second to last. And these three here are all, except for Debian, these two are really close, and then Debian's out in front. AES, obviously, an acceleration did not kick in. It's not the only distribution that has that issue. Fedora doesn't seem to like to use it. Rocky does. These are all internal in an Intel chipset. So yeah, if you turn on an acceleration, but it didn't come on. It came on for MX and it came on for Linux Mint. So that might be a factor if you're doing a lot of AES encryption. That's at 128. This is at 256. Same thing here. Same thing here is going on. LibreOffice is just how fast can you create 20 documents and convert them to PDF. That's it. That's all it does. So the shorter the time, the better. And winner is clearly, it's slightly Debian 13 followed by Devuan. They're pretty close. MX would be next, and then I would say Fedora, Linux Mint, and last place Alpine. Then we get into the stress tests. These are individual kernel tests that are pushing the machine to the point where it's either going to throttle or crash. Yeah, so that's there's just no two ways about how stress-ng works. It really pushes the machine hard. As far as positioning, it's in third from the last, third from the bottom. Yeah, Debian 13 did really well. NG. This one surprised me. This is the M map, and Alpine does really well here. Numa, yeah, this is one of those areas where if you turn it on, yeah, it is on, but there's a switch in here to turn it on, and Proxmox don't do that. Just leave it alone like this. Don't turn it on, it'll still work. So, yeah. Yeah, you only slow it down because you're probably forcing the NUMA code through software instead of the chip. NG pipe, this is just their pipe and the normal Linux pipes. So yeah, it's slugging stuff pretty fast. Fedora falls down here, and Rocky does too. Also, Debian falls down here as well. So the leader here was Linux Mint, and then these two kind of locked in. They're close. Polling, yeah, Rocky's last, followed by Alpine, so second to the last here. But as you can see, it's pretty close. Few ticks. I'm just going to kind of run through these. I'll just leave them up here for a second so you can look at them. And then you have mem fd. Now I would have thought this one would have done better, but it doesn't. So clearly we have some inhibitor that's, it does better than Linux Mint. So it kind of comes up to third, and it actually bypassed Debian. So yeah, I guess it had a good showing here as well. Atomic, this would be the low level kernel stuff. And this one, Debian does really well. But these guys right here, these three, they're all close. And then these two fall behind. Linux Mint and Rocky fall behind. So yeah, Alpine does okay here. You can't always tell from an ordering, as to who won or lost. I think sometimes need to look at this. Now this one, something weird is going on with Linux Mint. Obviously, it's using some kind of hardware acceleration because look at the difference. This is the same machine, and look at the difference. Whoa. Either it made that number up or this is hardware. Probably hardware. This is memory allocation. So, yeah. This one forking, Alpine doesn't do too well. Clearly, the winner here is Deviuan. Deviuan just smoked this test really well. P-threads. This is the normal Linux threading mechanism, at least one of the three. You have MX is out in front here. Alpine has a good showing here. They're in second, and the rest of them kind of fall in down below. The AVL trees, so yeah, it doesn't do too bad here. It really doesn't. IOU ring, this is heavily dependent on a particular aspect of the Linux kernel. So I'm not, you'll see groupings like this all the time where there's a couple of them will be really quick because they're using everything in the new standard. I'm not too surprised at that. Seen that before, as you can see. I've seen it before with MX and Fedora. CPU cache, let's see. MX does really well here. I would say, Alpine's in second here. That ain't nothing. Let's see. CPU stress. Yeah, it's hanging in there with the top billers. It's just slightly behind. Fedora. But these two down here, they're all. But these two here are fighting it out for the lead. This is probably the same. I would say that's close to the same. So yeah, that's down in the noise. That's down in the statistical error. MX25 on semaphores just smoked this test. No question about it. That is extremely fast. Especially, this is a 12th gen Intel that this runs on, and it's the mobile version. Let's see, Fedora 43, I'd put that in third. I'd put Dev1 in first, and Debian close, really close behind. And then I'd put Alpine here, MX. MX smoked this one. It just blew the doors off of everybody. Sorry, that's a dragster term. I would say Fedora second. These two are battling out for third place. Oh, yeah, they're pretty close. And then I think we can put Alpine. Yep, with Rocky and it running pretty close together. Test function calls. Yeah, Alpine's doing pretty well here. Floating point. It's in third. It's clearly in fourth place. Matrix 3D math. Yeah, Debbian wins. These three are all battling out. The problem is, you could run this test 5 times and these numbers will flip. They'll just, yeah, it just depends. Linux has a lot of subtasks that just kick in at random, so it's hard to measure Linux in a vacuum. The ideal state is to get it as quiet as you can, get the entire machine quiet, but that's sometimes difficult to do. All right, so Fedora 43, and then these two are battling. Well, let's see. I would put Deviuan first, with a tie possibly with Debian. Fedora clearly in second here. Third would be Alpine and MX. And then I would put Rocky and Linux Mint. Socket activity, MX, man, they are just cranking it. They do really well here. Context switching, Alpine smoked this one. I mean, it's not even close. Just making sure the arrows are going the right way. Fuse, multiply, add. These are all specialty things. It doesn't do bad. It's in fourth. Stress, something happens. Well, yeah, because it's going through Musl. Same here. System 5, message passing. Clearly, MX knows what they're doing here. I would go this to Linux Mint, then Dev1, then Alpine, then Debbian, and those two are kind of battling out for the bottom. PHP bench, yeah, that's pretty. I mean, this is a cluster right here. This is the winner. This is a cluster right here, and here. So Dev1 and Alpine and MX are all kind of in the same. Pabri I couldn't run. So as far as the harmonic mean is concerned, the BOGO ops per second, Alpine is clearly last. But then when you look at the overall scores, you have Linux Mint wins this benchmark, followed by MX. And this is because of some really high scoring on that one test where they were like, way out in front of everybody else. Then you have MX. Then I'd say you have a cluster here of these three. And then I would say Rocky and Alpine is last. Alpine is not the slowest. It's slowest in this particular set of tests. But as you saw, it's certainly not the slowest in everything. It had 2 first-place finishes, and MX had 16 first-place finishes. Debian 15, Dev1 7, Fedora 7, Linux Mint 5, and Rocky 1. In the, that's out of 53 tests. Now, don't compare, I always say this, don't compare this one to that one. They're not the same. This is, if my distro, whatever it is my favorite, finishes highest in a particular benchmark, it gets counted. If it's last in a particular benchmark, it gets counted here. You can't go, well, you had 52 tests, you take this and you subtract it. This number is totally bogus. No, that's not the way it works. You have to finish last in one of those 53 tests to win a number place here. And okay, so Rocky had 22. Alpine had 13, Linux Mint had 12, Fedora had 3, and MX had 3. And that's the way it shakes out. So yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, I kind of was recapping this thing as I went along. So my impression is Alpine Linux, can we label it as it's slow because of Musl? I don't think that is telling. I don't think that comes across in the benchmarks at all. If it did, every application that was linked with glibc should smoke it, and we didn't see that. In certain cases, in some of the, the NG stress tests, we didn't see that. But remember, that is the kernel. Yes, Alpine is not good for all purposes, but what distribution is. They all have their pluses and minuses and kind of where they slot into things. If they didn't have neat places for the niche to be, they probably wouldn't stick around long. They'd probably be dissolving and going away. But each distribution brings with it a strength and a weakness. All software does that. That's not surprising to me, and it shouldn't be to you either. How you use Alpine is really is where you're going to see performance gains or performance losses. That's my point. It depends on what use case you attempt to put it on. I don't try to put Fedora on every use case either, because it's good at some and it's bad at others. So yeah, and Debian's the same way. Can Alpine be a server? Well, let me just say this. I ran Alpine for 6 years as my Gluster FS server. Alpine, it's a middle of the roader as far as I'm concerned. It kind of fits in that down the road, and it's, I don't know. I've used it on Pi's. I've used it on the x86. I don't personally see any difference that's registerable to me. If I'm running something, I don't go, well, God, I could get this running a hell of a lot faster on an x86 running Debian or running Fedora. No, I don't see that. That's all I had. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope to see you in the next one. And if you have questions, as always, put them down below. I'll be happy to try to answer them. And I'll talk to you very soon, and bye for now. Thanks for watching.